Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 13 and it's titled Soldiering On. And this one goes out to everyone who found their, we'll say, personal awakenings in whatever way you may have found them. For some of us it may have been the volleyball scene from Top Gun, but that's neither here nor there, and we're going to represent that with Soldiering On. So with that being said, today's deck, we are using two non-partner commanders. We are working with a budget of $100 or less, and we are using that to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June through the medium of Magic the Gathering. So today, our two partners are going to be Commander Mustard and Harbin Vanguard Aviator. Starting off with Commander Mustard, he is 3 red-white for a 5/5 legendary creature human soldier. He's got Vigilance, and he gives other soldiers we control Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. And you can pay 2 red-white, and until the end of turn, soldiers you control gain, whenever this creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to defending player. His partner is Harbin Vanguard Aviator, which is a white and a blue for a 3/2 legendary creature human soldier. He's got flying, and whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain flying until the end of turn. Now, for those who may have been adding up all of the keywords there, you may notice if we attack with 5 or more soldiers, then all of our creatures will be getting +1/+1, flying, vigilance, trample, and haste, plus we could activate Commander Mustard and have them do 1 damage to the defending player. So obviously that is a lot going on, but it does force us into a very specific archetype. And so with that being said, let's move on to some of our themes and break down how exactly we want this deck to function. Starting off with our first theme, we of course have soldiers. So we need to fill our deck with as many soldiers as possible and give our soldiers the way to kind of push toward a victory, because obviously we want to be going wide in order to trigger our commanders, but if we're going wide, we're probably making a bunch of 1/1 creatures, so we also need soldiers like Yoshin Tactician, which is 2 white-blue for a 3/4 human soldier, and it simply says other soldiers you control get +1/+1. This gives us the ability to not only go wide with our creatures, but also be able to do a little bit more damage. Moving on to our second theme, we of course have tokens. If we are really intending to go wide, we have to make sure that we have enough creatures to do it, and just playing 1 creature a turn is not going to get us there. So we need cards like Raise the Alarm, which is 1 and a white for an instant, create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. This gives us the ability to instant speed make a couple of soldiers in case we need to block, or give them pseudo haste by casting at end step, untapping, and then attacking. But it also lets us go a little bit wider. For 2 mana, we get 2 soldiers, which means we can do a lot more damage if we have something like Yoshin Tactician, we can do a lot more damage with Commander Mustard, and it gets us closer to Harbin's ability to give them flying. So obviously, gotta go a little bit wide. Moving on to our final theme, and this is keywords. So we've already talked about all of the special keywords that our commanders give to our creatures, but we may as well also add a couple more into the mix. So to that end, we have Rock's Pikemaster, which is 2 white-white for a 3/3 Rhino Soldier. It's got First Strike, and other soldiers you control have First Strike. So that gives us plenty of ways to just kind of flood the board with a bunch of tiny 1/1s with no abilities, and then immediately pump them up, give them +1/+1, give them First Strike, give them flying, give them haste, and put us in a position where we are very quickly able to overwhelm our opponents and make sure that no matter what they're doing, they're really not going to have a defense for what we are aiming to do. That, though, brings us to the end of our themes for today. And the next thing we gotta do is of course take a look at some key cards in the deck. And these are cards that really synergize with what we're trying to do, and in some cases can be win conditions or value engines all on their own, but in most cases are going to be the MVPs of the deck. So starting off, our first key card is going to be Sky Strike Officer. And Sky Strike Officer is 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human soldier with flying. Whenever it attacks, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token, and you can tap 3 untapped soldiers you control to draw a card. Given how wide this deck wants to go, and the fact that Commander Mustard gives all of our soldiers vigilance, we can very easily just attack out with our entire team, keep them up as blockers, and then right before it becomes our turn, tap them all to draw a bunch of cards, refill our hand, and then repeat the process the next turn. So Sky Strike Officer is really one of the best card draw engines in the entire deck, and it obviously becomes much stronger when we have Commander Mustard out, but it's by no means bad if we don't. Moving on to our second key card, this one is Horn of Gondor. And Horn of Gondor is 3 mana for a legendary artifact. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Then you can pay 3 and tap it to create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of humans you control. So this kind of exponentially gets out of hand, so if we assume we have nothing but that 1 human token that it created, next turn we would make 1 more human token, then we would make 2, then 4, 8, 16, and we just immediately get to a point where all of these human soldiers are getting, like I said earlier, flying and first strike and haste and vigilance and +1/+1, and then all of a sudden there is nothing our opponents can do to stop us, because yeah, they might take down a couple of the little soldiers, but we are going to have so many more to replace them that there is nothing that our opponents can do to stop us. And finally, moving on to our last key card, this one is Daru Warchief, which unfortunately is a massive $6.40, but very much worth the price tag, because it is 2 white for a 1/1 soldier. Soldier spells you play cost 1 less to play, and soldiers you control get +1/+2. So this is by far one of the best Lord effects in the entire deck, and you might be wondering why it's 4 mana for a 1/1, but it doesn't say other soldiers you control, so it does in fact make itself a 2/3, which is already pretty decent. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's decent. And it gives us one of the best ramp effects in the entire deck, because we can then pay 1 less for every single one of our soldiers. So Daru Warchief is not only helping us ramp more soldiers into play, but it's also pumping them to a point where they are difficult to kill, giving them, mostly at least, that 3 toughness, which means they're not dying to 2/2s, which means they need a little bit more work to deal with, and it puts us in a position where we don't have to worry too much about attacking. We can just attack, let our opponents do the math on the blocking, and try to profit from there. That, though, brings us to the end of our key cards for today, and the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some cool interactions in the deck. And these are cards that really synergize together, and in some cases are just fun cards that I want to highlight. So the first pair of cool interactions is going to be between Lasarnak Captain and Call the Coppercoats. So Lasarnak Captain is 3 and a white for a 3/1 human soldier. It's got first strike. When it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls, and at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This card is a great way to make sure we can push through damage by just removing our opponent's blockers completely. And the most efficient way to do that is with Call the Coppercoats, which is 2 and a white for an instant. It has Strive, so it costs 1 and a white more to cast for each target beyond the first. And it says choose any number of target opponents, create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures those opponents control. Now, the way that this math works out is if we have one opponent that has 5 creatures, we cast Call the Coppercoats, just targeting that opponent, we make 5 1/1s, they will all come in, trigger the Lasarnak Captain, and tap 5 creatures, meaning that if we can pay the mana for every single opponent, we can tap down every single creature they control, and then untap, because Call the Coppercoats is an instant, with a giant board of humans ready to swing that are probably getting a lot of buffs from our other creatures in play. Even beyond that, Call the Coppercoats still gives us a ton of creatures, so even without the captain, it would still be very good. That, though, is only cool interaction number 1, so moving on to cool interaction number 2, in this case, we have Captain of the Watch and Catapult Master. So, Captain of the Watch is a 3/3 human soldier with vigilance that costs 4 white. Other soldier creatures you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. So this card alone gives us 4 bodies, which is going to spread out 6 power and toughness. Well, technically more, considering the captain's going to give the little soldiers +1/+1, so technically we're looking more at like 9 power and toughness for 6 mana with vigilance across 4 bodies. Very powerful card, very good in soldiers. But one of the best cards to pair it with is Catapult Master, which is 3 white for a 3/3 human soldier, and you can tap 5 untapped soldiers you control to exile target creature. One of the things we mentioned earlier with Sky Strike Captain is being able to attack with vigilance and then use a tap ability. Catapult Master, very similar in that regard. And Captain of the Watch is another way, other than Commander Mustard, to give all of our creatures vigilance. But the reason I wanted to highlight these 2 cards in particular is because these 2 cards combined are 5 creatures, because the Captain will bring along 3 soldier tokens, she of course has herself, and then the Catapult Master makes 5. So if we can curve Catapult Master on turn 5 into Captain of the Watch turn 6, we are immediately able to exile another target creature, when our opponents might have thought they were safe for quite a while, considering we may have only had 1 creature when this all went down. So it kind of comes out of nowhere, it gives us a lot of bodies, gives us removal, gives us damage, and I think that both of these cards on their own are incredibly powerful, but together they can put us in a position where we can remove any problematic cards and our opponents just can't touch us. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our cool interactions. So the next piece of our deck tech is of course to take a look at the price of the deck. And today, our total deck price came in at $49.02, with the most expensive card being Brimaz, King of Oreskos at $7.45. So Brimaz is 1 white for a 3/4 legendary creature cat soldier. It has vigilance, and whenever it attacks, put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield attacking, and whenever Brimaz blocks a creature, put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield blocking that creature. Brimaz is very effective at creating tokens, considering it can make them both attacking and blocking. He's got vigilance, so we don't have to choose between the two. And despite all of that, it's still going to be creating soldier tokens that also have vigilance naturally. We don't have to worry about getting our commander or the Captain of the Watch into play to give them vigilance. They just have it. So Brimaz is a very powerful card that I definitely think deserves a spot in the deck, but if you did need to trim a little bit for budget purposes, there are so many sweet soldiers out there, you could definitely find a replacement. That, though, is the end of our deck tech for today, so thank you all so much for watching. If you did like the video, I would love it if you would quite literally like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really lets me know that people are interested in these types of videos. I know our Pride decks have gotten a lot of love and support, so thank you all so much to everyone out there. If you're interested in going a little bit above and beyond in supporting the channel, you can find us over on Patreon, patreon.com/dungeonlearnersguide, and right here on YouTube as a channel member. So with all that being said, a huge shout out to our current patrons and channel members. Thank you to everybody for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful Pride Month, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.